So today what I would like to be able to program is some kind of matrix animation where I have letters kind of falling down the screen and kind of changing and kind of looking kind of matrixy and interesting. Obviously I'll kind of do my own little take on it and leave kind of customization options for you to kind of take this in your own direction. But what I'd like to do is just get the idea of text falling down the screen and see how we can then take that in our own direction. So as always, in a processing sketch, we need void setup and void draw, and the setup loop will be run once at startup when the code is first run, and the draw loop will be run 60 times a second at kind of optimal performance. If I code this badly, then it might run a bit less, but we will see. So what I'm going to do right off the bat, let's just make a size quickly. So size, let's just make a little window to begin with. So maybe like a say a 400 wide by 600 tall. Just check that works. Lovely. Okay, and let's pop in a background of black. Okay, fab. So we've got our little window here to work in. Now, what I would like to do is just program a letter. So I'm going to make a new tab, and I'm going to call this letter. Letter, and I think it's going to be a class of letter. And in that, when we make a letter, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to give it a position. We're going to give it an X position, which will probably be a float. Its Y position, we can probably just set right off the bat. And let's set that to, because we want everything to start up the top. Actually, let's pass the Y position in as well. So letter float X position, float Y position. Let's keep things simple, and then we can say something like this dot position. Oh, hang on, I need to declare it up here first. A p vector. I'm going to use a p vector, which is essentially a something that has an X and a Y position built into it. So I can use pos, and that will store both an X and a Y position just in one variable. It just makes things a little bit simpler, a little bit more easier to follow. So I'm going to have that p vector pos, and I'm going to say this.pos equals a new p vector. We're going to make a new one, and we're going to store in that X position that we pass in, and we're going to store that Y position that we pass in. And that will be the position of my letter. Now let's do, let's make a kind of function called maybe full. And what I need to do is actually have this have a speed. So float speed, and then here I'll pass in the speed of the letter as a float. And I will say this dot speed is equal to speed. So this dot speed referring to the speed variable attached to the letter. Whenever we make a new letter, it will have a property of speed, and that will be set in here. This speed here, without this dot on it, refers to the speed that has been passed in here. Now I could call this something different. So like, I don't know, I could call this something like, what's the synonym for speed? I don't know. Let's just say amount of speed, and then I could take this whole variable name and put it in this place as well, and that kind of shows you the two different things. So this speed is relating to this, and amount of speed is relating to this, and they're two separate things. I think it's simpler just to call this speed, but if you wanted to make that kind of distinction, then you're more than welcome to. Now, full is simply going to take this dot pos dot y, and it's going to we're going to use minus equals, so it's going to be equal to itself minus this dot speed. So whatever our y position is in our vector, we're going to take away from that the speed that we've set at the start, and that will allow us to fall. Let's also make a display. So how we display our letter. Now our letter needs to be given a actual letter. So I'm going to say char letter, comma, and let's define a char letter up here. And so when we pass in everything, we're going to say this dot letter equals letter. And again, I could change these two to different names so that they're different to these two, but they are separate entities as far as this letter class is concerned. Okay, so when I display this, I'm going to display some text, and it is going to be this dot letter. It is going to be at this dot pos dot x and this dot pos dot y. So you can see here that all I need to do is give it a letter, an x, a y, and a speed, and this will take care of everything for me. So let's see if we can just get this running. So let's say letter. This is going to be really confusing. I do apologise. Letter equals new letter, and we have to give it its letter. So I'm going to go for the letter. Oh, we need to use single quotes because we're doing a character, not a string, which is different. A string is a sequence of characters, whereas a character is just one individual thing. Let's just do the letter 0. I know it's a number, but which really should be called character, but I've called it letter. I'm in too deep now. We're going to put it at, let's say, 100, 100, and what was the other thing? The speed I'm going to say is 2. Okay, and here what we're going to say is letter.display and letter.fall. Okay, it's not happy with that because I've missed a semicolon. Let's try that again. Okay, I've programmed this wrong. My letter goes upwards. So in full, this dot pos dot y minus equal speed needs to be plus equal speed. So now I have my 0 and it is falling down the screen. Lovely. So what I'd like to do now is, instead of starting at 100 for y, let's start at minus 100. And so then we should start with a black screen, and we should have that 0 just fall down onto the screen, all the way down, and then back up. Okay, fab. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a line of those letters. So I'm going to make a new class in a new tab, and I'm going to call it letter. Let's just call it line. So class line, and when we make a new line, what do we need? Well, we need to give it a x position, which we're going to use a float for. I don't know if we need anything else right now. So we are going to make a function called generate letters. And this is going to make a load of letters for us in a line. So instead of in here, in this main thing saying letter, letter, and making one letter, we're going to make a new line, and that will make us a line of letters. So we're going to have to do a for loop. We should really pick a number. Maybe we could pass it in. So let's say int, what's it going to be? Letter count. I'm going to say, I'm going to have an int of count. I'm going to make it a constant because once it's passed in, it will just be constant. It won't change. So this dot count equals count. And you can see there that, oh no, not this count, letter count. So I've kept these separately labeled so it's quite clear to see what belongs to what. So this is being passed into the function, and this is being kind of a property of this class, of this line. So for, let's do int I equals 0. I is less than this dot count I plus plus. We are going to make a new letter, so letter L, I'm just going to use L, equals new letter, and we are going to, now this should have an X position, so let's put that in, float X position, and this dot X position equals X position. So this dot new letter, now the first thing we need to do is give it a letter. Now at the moment I'm just going to pick a random number, so I'm going to say char letter equals random from, let's floor it, from between 0 and 10. Will that give me, I think that will give me from between 0 and 9 if I'm flooring it. And we're going to make that a character. So I want to take whatever that is and turn it into a character so that it will fit the data type of this letter. I can then pass it into letter and my new letter and put it there, so letter. The word letter is on this screen too much. Sorry, it's starting to lose meaning. New letter, so let's put in our X position, so this dot X position. And now we need to do something clever because we need to stack them up vertically. Okay, so they're all going to be in the same X position. They're all going to be the same distance across on the page. But the first one needs to start maybe at, in fact, let's make a float Y position. I'm going to set that equal to minus. Actually, let's add some randomness into here. So let's do random from between minus 10 and minus, or should I do it? No, it doesn't matter. From minus 10 and minus, let's say 200. Okay, and then that is going to be our starting Y position, and then every subsequent one we're going to take one away from Y. So we're going to say Y position minus equals, remember when I did minus equals it goes upwards, so we're going to be stacking these on top of each other. Minus equals, what do I want to minus equals? Maybe, I don't know how big these characters are, maybe like 10 for now. In fact, let's put that as a, let's call this letter height, and let's put that in here, so minus equals this dot letter height, and that will stay consistent then, and I can easily change that at a glance. So minus less letter height. What we need to do is we need to create an array, so we're going to create an array list, and that is going to be the data type of letter. So we're going to store letters and we're going to call it letters, and we're going to say that in here, or should we say in here actually, and say this dot letters equals new array list of letter, and I put brackets like that, and I think that will work. And then down here I can say this dot letters, letters dot add, and I can add in that letter. And so let's do that. Okay, so let's kind of unpick this because this has got a little bit dense. So I'm creating an array to store all letters for this line. Picking random start position. Creating a set amount of letters, and that constant, this dot count, will tell us how many letters. And then here we pick the character. In fact, that's a much better variable name. I'm going to rename this to character. I'm going to rename this to character. Char character, yeah, so that makes a lot more sense. So pick the character for the new letter, and then we create the new letter, we add it to the array, and then we decrease Y position for next letter. Okay, cool. So this should add all of our letters, and now we can just add a simple function to say void display letters, and we are going to display all the letters. So we can say for letter L in, oh, not in, colon means in Python you can just say in and it's lovely, but in here you have to say colon. In this dot letters we want to say L dot display and L dot full. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty confident, maybe unreasonably slow, but I should be able to say line equals character, what's this, the speed. I need to give them all the same speed. So in my line, I've given my new letter a character, an X position. I've not even given it a Y position. Okay, let's sort this out. So let's put in a Y position, and we also need to give it a speed. Let's set the line speed at the start. That makes most sense. So we're going to say int line speed equals 2. No, line speed. Yeah, just for now we will. Actually, I'll do that there, and then I'll say this dot line speed equals 2. Later on, I might pass this into line. Do you know what? I'll do it now. Int speed, and then we can say speed. So then later on, we can have lines moving at different speeds, which kind of makes sense. This dot line speed equals speed. Cool. So over here, when we make a new letter, we need to just include this dot line speed. And that is in capitals because it is a constant. The speed of my line won't change, it will just constantly be the same. So line equals new line, and we need to give our line an X position. And what else do we need to give it? We need to give it a letter count and a speed. So let's give it, let's just try something simple and easy to count. So 4 and a speed of 2. So let's, and then here we should say, what did we have? Line dot display letters. I need to generate letters as well. So let's say when we set all of our variables, then let's say this dot generate letters. So that will make all of our letters, and then we need to display our letters inside our draw loop. So I'm going to say line dot display letters. Cool. So our actual code here, we make a new line. Our line is a new line with these variables. So 100 across from the left hand side. That's the X position we want it to have. We want to make 4 letters in that line, and we want them to all fall at the speed of 2 pixels per frame, which is 60 frames a second. So every second it will fall 120 pixels down. And we want to display letters every time. Now display letters, it's here for every letter in our letters. We're going to display and we're going to fall, and here you can see that we've written how they display and how they fall. So we've got all this functionality built into them. So now I should be able to hit play. No, I shouldn't. Cannot make a static. Okay. I need to say line with a lowercase l. Let's try that again. Moment of truth. It might have started quite high up, so it could take just a second to fall down. Maybe. Okay, what have I done? I think I might have done something silly when I picked the new generators random -10 to -200. what am I forgetting to do? Let's print line l dot pos dot x l dot let's just do l dot pos dot y semicolon. Okay, so they are falling. I think I know what I've done. I probably should fill them and make them white. That would probably help display them, wouldn't it? Let's try that again. I was really hoping that would fix it. Their X position, new letter is expecting X position. Yeah, when we full, we add this speed. This is annoying. Okay, so let's just have a little look at the console. So they started at -8. And they're slowly falling down. Why aren't they on the screen? They are falling. They're just not displaying. Why not? This dot letter line. Let's print line character. Okay, you can't actually print those out, which is bad. Okay, I know what's going on. This is converting them into an ASCII. So this was putting it like this was putting the number into its ASCII value. So on the ASCII table, the 10th number on the ASCII table represents like a space or a carriage return or a tab or something. And so it's just kind of like a command control, really. So it's looking up in a table the 10th item in that if we were to get the random number 10 or the 9th or the 8th or whatever. What we want is the character version of this random number. So we want to convert this random number to the character data type. And for that I need to put char in brackets like this rather than putting this in brackets, which is really confusing, and they should probably separate that and have it go to a different function name. But there we are. So now let's get rid of these print lines because that's a bit spammy. Let's get rid of that. And that one little thing should change everything. I really thought everything was just kind of falling apart there. So hopefully... No. Why not this time? Okay, so let's print our character again. Okay, it's still not working. Print line character. I really should just be getting a number printed out there. So maybe if I went to string. Let's try that. Cannot convert from string to char. And then let's say char. Cannot cast from string to char. No, this is not going well. Maybe let's make this a string. No, it doesn't like that because I can't give it a string. In that case, in letter, let's make this a string. Will that appease you? Okay, great. We have we have things. Yay, they're working. Okay, so just a bit of like data type shenanigans there. Letter height 10 isn't quite enough, so let's maybe do letter height 15. Lovely. So we can see there that we have a sequence of letters. Now, is that just a fluke that we've got 3 6s in a row? I hope so. Let's try that again. Okay, it just seems like the odds are quite high of getting a repeated number, but that's okay. Let's just run it once more just to show, just to check. Wow, I really would have thought that we'd get less doubles. Okay, yeah, we can get a unique sequence. Okay, so we have got falling text now. Let's make our line a little bigger. So instead of saying 4 letters, let's say 20. Okay, nice. Now we're getting a proper kind of data stream. Even 20 is a little bit low. Let's double that to 40. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, cool. So now what I'd like to do is, once it has fallen off the screen, I'd like it to come back onto the screen. I'd like it to do like a little loop. So what do I need to do? When I'm displaying the letters, I need to check for the lowest y. So float lowest y equals, let's say, minus 1,000. That's pretty low. And we can say, as we go through all of these letters, we can say if l.pos.y is less than, wait, this is supposed to be lowest y. Let's do it at 1,000. Is less than lowest y, then lowest y is equal to l.pos.y, because if our position of this letter is less than the lowest y, then it is the lowest y. It's the lowest one on the screen. And then when we go to the next one, that lowest y will be a value. It won't be 1,000 anymore. It will be a value of a letter that we've looked at. And if the next letter is less than that lowest y, then that will overwrite, and we'll keep going through until we end up with the very lowest y. And we're doing this in this loop so that we're kind of not having to do another loop, and kind of trying to keep my code fairly efficient. Obviously, it's never going to be amazing, but I can try. If I'm thinking about this while designing, it's helpful. So lowest y equals, okay, so we've got our lowest y there. So then if our lowest y, if our lowest y is greater than the height of the screen, then we need to reset our line. So I'm going to say this dot reset letter height, and we need to write that function. So up here I'm going to say void reset letter height, and we are going to go through all of our letters. So I'm going to pinch this for letter L in this dot letters, and we are going to, what are we going to do? We are going to subtract a number from all of those letters. So we're going to say l.pos.y. Now, really what I want to do is just subtract the height. What do I want to do? So I want them all to go back up. So if that's it, yeah, so maybe I need to do like 2 times height. So minus equals height times 2. And this will reset all of the Y positions back up past the height of the screen and allow them to come back down again. So let's give this a little go and see if this actually works. Semicolon there, always forgetting my semicolons. Okay, so we've got our stream of letters coming through. They come down, and now we're waiting for this 3 to go off the screen. That will be our lowest Y. Once that's off the screen, oh, look at that! Fantastic. Okay, great. That is a major fluke. Okay, that's lovely. I think that's really good. So as soon as this 3 goes off the screen, we jump everything back up and we come back onto the screen. Now this will work as long as the height isn't, as long as there aren't more letters than there are kind of the height of the screen. So that will have to be a consideration. But that's okay. I think it looks good. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to get all the letters kind of fidgeting and changing. So when we're displaying, let's get it to change. So let's pick a random number. So int, no, let's do float. Float r equals random between 0 and 1. Okay, so that's going to pick us a floating point number between 0 and 1. So it could be any decimal between 0 and 1. So 0.0045, that could be a potential pick there. And I'm going to say if r is less than 0.1, and actually let's make a threshold up here. So let's say float threshold. Is that how you spell threshold? Ooh, see how that's changed colour? That's a reserved word from processing. Gonna have to try another one. Change threshold equals 0.1, and we will use this dot. I'm a real big fan of keeping anything that I want to change up at the top and really clearly labelled, so that when I come to tinkering with this, it's really easy to change everything and really easy to know what I need to change. So if my random number is less than the change threshold, then I want to change it, okay? So only if it's lower than 0.1. It could be 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Could be loads, so there's a kind of a 10% chance that it will change now, because there's got to be less than 0.1, and it can only be as big as 1, this random number. So if r is less than this .change threshold, then we are going to pick a new random number, and let's just do that now. So actually doing this probably isn't the best idea. Let's not give it a character here. Let's take this and let's go into letter. We're not going to put in a string letter there, but we're going to say this dot letter equals pick letter, this dot pick letter. And what we will do is we'll make a little function, because we can reuse it in here as well. So if that, then this dot pick letter. Now the way I'm going to program this means that there is the chance that it can pick the same letter, but I don't really think that's a problem. I think it picking the same letter, you won't really notice. Actually, I don't want to say this dot letter equals this dot pick letter. I just want to say this dot pick letter, and I will say this dot letter equals character. Cool. So now I should be able to run this, and you can see, look at that, they're changing in place. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, we got some proper matrixy style stuff going on. Now the matrix uses the I think it's the Kenji character set from Japanese a Japanese language alphabet. I'm just going to do it in numbers, but you could look into kind of Unicode characters and convert that, or maybe I'll do it in a separate video. So I've got these changing. What I'd like to do is just change the colour here. So I'm currently just doing it in white. If I did like maybe 50 red, 200 green, and 10 blue, or something like that, and made it a bit more. Yeah, now we're hacking. Okay, cool. So we have got a single line. Now what would be nice is to get lots of lines. So what should we do? Is it worth making another class? I think so. I really like to keep this section here completely kind of as empty as possible, really. So it's really easy, it's really high level. You can just see I have a line, I make it here, and then I tell it to display letters. And that's all this code does here. Obviously I'd make my size and I'd give it a background color of 0, but this is like really high level. There's loads going on behind the scenes that we've programmed, but on the surface of it, we're just saying, yeah, display the letters, and just kind of we can just kind of remove ourselves from all the detail, which is it's nice. I think it's nice to be able to pull away from that. So let's have what should we call it? What should I call it? A new tab, and let's call it. Let's call it a series. So this might be the last class we make. Might being the operative word, and so I'm going to take line equals new line, and I'm going to say series equals new series, and then I'm going to say series dot display lines, and we're going to have to write all these, and then here series. Oh dear, that's another word that's going to lose its meaning quickly. Okay, so class series. It is going to have a line. Oh, didn't mean to do that. A line? No, it's not. It's going to have an array list of lines. So let's make an array list of the data type line, and we're going to call it lines, and we're going to make a class called build lines. And in here we're going to have that line there. Line equals new line. Right, we need to make a series constructor. So the first thing that runs when we make a new series, and this is simply going to just say build lines for now. This dot build lines. Okay, when we build our lines, we're going to start at the x position. So float x position of, let's say, 10. No, hang on, getting ahead of myself. So let's make a float of lines equal to width divided by, and then we should maybe have like a kind of float line width equals 10. So let's say they're going to dedicate 10 pixels for each line to occupy. So we're going to do width divided by 10. This can be line spacing actually. So line spacing equals width divided by 10. Float x position equals line spacing. So that will be where the first one starts. And then what we'll do is we will say x position plus equals line spacing. I'm really sorry, I'm programming this in a really roundabout way. That's just kind of how my brain works. But I need to chuck all of this in a for loop. So float line spacing, x position equals line spacing. So here I need to say for I. Will that divided by 10? No, I don't want line spacing, I want the actual line width. So okay, so instead of dividing by 10, I need to say this dot line amount. Okay, and then this is going to be actually our line amount. Line spacing is width divided by this dot line amount. Our x position is going to equal our line spacing. Yep. And then for integer I equals 0, I is less than what? I is less than our line amount, so this dot line amount, I plus plus, we're going to make a new line, and we're going to do all of this in that. So our line is a new line, x position plus equals line spacing. I've got my array list line, so let's make that array list now. So down here, I'm going to say this dot lines equals new array list, which is of the data type lines. No, line. Yeah. And we're going to make that. And then down here we can say lines dot add our new line. So here we're going to create our certain amount of lines. So this is going to be our x position that we've just made. We have to give it a certain amount of letters to make, so we can pick that. We can make a random amount. So let's do int letter amount, and we're going to set that equal to the floor, so we're going to round it down to the random, and we'll do a random between something like 30 and 50 characters, just to give it a little bit of randomness. So then we'll have our letter amount, and our speed we can also grab, let's do a float for speed, and that will equal, we're not going to floor it, we're going to have it as a nice floating point number, and we could say something like the random between, I think, yeah, let's do 1 and 10. That could be a bit much, but let's see. And then we'll put in speed here. So we're going to give our new line its x position. It deals with its y position itself, because that can kind of be independently managed. Our amount of letters we're going to generate randomly, and our speed we're going to generate randomly. We're going to add our line to this dot lines, and then we're going to increase our x position by the line spacing that we calculated at the start. So that should build us all of our lines. And now what I need to do is I need to make a display lines. So did I call it display lines here? Yes, I did. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to say for line L in, not in, sorry Python, for line L in this dot lines, we are going to say L dot, is it display? What did I say in line? Display letters. Cool. So display letters. And I think that's all I need to do. Okay, let's just see what happens if I press play. I get an error, of course I do. Falling text.line, float int float is undefined. So what is line expecting? Float int int. Oh, it's expecting an integer for speed? No, let's make this a float. So float line speed. So this dot line speed is a float, and we're going to pass it in a float in order to assign it to that variable. So now let's give it a run. Oh, look at that. Okay, I would say maybe our range of speeds is just not good. Between 1 and 10, 1 is so slow, it's painfully slow. So let's do maybe between, I think 2 was fairly fast, so let's maybe do between like 3 and 7. They're kind of awkward numbers, but I think that will look fairly good. And let's also play around with our line amounts. So we've got 10 lines at the moment. Let's do 20 and see how that looks. Ah, yeah. Okay, that's cool. This is still... Wait, have I said random? I don't know why I've said random. Okay, let's just do one random for speed. I think I must have got confused with floor. And okay, now, okay, yeah. So I think, what did I do? Between 2 and 7 is way too fast. Maybe between 2 and 4. and let's see how that is. Okay, that's still quite fast. That's a bit much. I might do from like 1 and 3. See how that works. Okay, we're starting to get there. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, some of them are just appearing because I think they might be too long. So what I'm going to do is when in my line, is it my line? When I reset my letter height, instead of minus equaling height times 2, I'm going to do height times 3, and that should hopefully send them way up to the top and get them to reset properly. Yeah, this is cool. Okay, last thing that I'd really like to implement is I would like to make the first letter white, because that's how it's done in the kind of matrix style of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this leading letter white, so it's kind of the leader of the group. And the way we're going to do this is when we generate our letters, before we jump into this for loop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's say in here, I'm going to say if I is equal to 0, so if this is our first letter, now the first letter we pick is the one that will be the leader of the group, the first letter that will drop down. So that is our thing that we make first of all, our first letter in this loop. So if I equals 0, so now letter, we're going to say, we're going to give it a colour. So colour, and I can spell it the British way, which gives me no end of joy. And we can say colour equals colour, and then put that in there. And then when we fill, we can just say this dot colour, spelt the British way. That's great. And so what I'm doing is I'm setting the colour up here, attaching it to the letter. Now when we make a new letter, it will start with this colour. So all letters will start with this colour that we can see in here. Okay. Now if I equals 0, we're going to say l.colour, spelt the British way, is equal to colour, and we are going to give it a white. So 255, 255, 255. And what that will do is it will change the first letters to white, and hopefully you'll be able to see that now when I press play. Hooray! Okay, great. So you can see there that we've got these white leading letters that are coming down. Now, potentially what we could look at is maybe stopping those letters from changing so that they stay the same. That might be quite a nice little effect to add, so that the others are changing but these stay constant. I think it will give the kind of animation a bit more robustness. So let's come down here. If r is less than this dot change threshold, and this dot color does not equal color 255, 255, 255, will that work? Will that do anything? Yes, look at that. They're all static. None of them are changing. Okay, cool. So we've got these kind of static numbers that are leading the troops, so to speak, and then we have all of their big tails kind of changing and flickering as they're coming down. And I think that looks really effective. Now, the last thing I'd like to do just before I say goodbye is make this bigger. Now at the moment this is set to, we can change this with line amount in our series. Now what I would like to do is maybe pass this into series, so right from the start I can say new series and give it a number, and that will tell us how many lines we have. So I'm going to say int lines, and here I'm going to call this an integer line amount, and I'm going to say this dot line amount, this dot line amount is equal to lines, and that will be a whatever we pass in here. So here we are saying 20, and now instead of running this at size 400, 600, I think there's a way in processing that I can get it to, if I go to processing.org, go to the documentation, I should be able to full screen. Cool, so you can just say full screen. Okay, so let's get rid of size and let's say full screen. Do I need a capital S? Yep, so you can see it changed colour there when I put the capital S in. So now if I hit play, cool. It's got me 20 lines, but they're quite kind of sparse. It's working, but it needs optimization. Now, one thing we can do is we can set we can kind of get it to calculate how many lines it needs. So our line amount, let's get rid of this whole idea of line amount. And let's optimize this for line width. So actually, let's go back. Int line width. And we'll set that equal to 5. Okay, so line spacing equals width. So if we divide the width by what the width of each line we want, that will give us our amount of lines. And then here we can just say line amount. And down here, line spacing. So it'll be this dot line width, this dot. Okay, so I think I programmed it a little bit backwards, but this is what I was trying to do. And so this should now, without us telling it how many lines we want, it should automatically work out how many lines to fill the screen. So here, just thinking about it, because okay, I don't think five is a little bit stingy. We're not. Yeah, it looks pretty cool, but I don't think that's the effect you want. So let's maybe try this with a line width of 8. Let's see how that goes. Okay, yeah, that's still that's better. I do think that has its own merits to how good it looks. Let's try 10. I'm just pressing escape, by the way, to come out of this full screen mode. So you can see there we can play with the width, and that will affect how this looks. I think that looks really good. I think that's really cool, especially this as it's kind of fading out and now it's going to start surging down again. What might be nice is when it goes back up, it recalculates its speed. So let's just do that. I know I said I would finish, but let's just do one last thing. So our float speed here, let's pick it at the line. So let's take this, and when our line is made, line speed, so we're going to say this dot generate, no, let's say this dot get speed, void get speed, and we are going to say that this dot line speed. Now I'm going to change this from a constant to a variable because it won't be constant anymore. We're going to change it. So line speed here is going to be line underscore speed, and this dot line speed equals speed. So we can get rid of that. And now our line speed, we're going to get speed, which will say this dot line speed equals random between 1 and 3. And then when we reset our letters, when we reset our letter height here, we can then say, but then we'd need to pass it to all the letters. So we could then say, here we say this dot get speed, and then in here, l.pos.y, we can then say l.speed, letter has a speed, right? Yeah, l.speed equals this dot line speed. And so we can reset their speed. So now, okay, I need to get rid of this. Letter L equals, why aren't you happy? Okay, so I need to get rid of this because we're doing it ourselves. Wait, no. This dot line speed. Oh, okay, that variable doesn't exist. I changed it from a constant to a variable just by changing the case. Why don't you like this? Line equals new line. Okay, so in here, we're not going to give our line a speed because we're going to calculate that at the line. Float in, so line, why isn't this happy? Float speed, we don't want to pass in a speed here. Okay. Cool, so as it hits, you can see that we've got some that are in the middle here that are quite slow, we've got some that are down here that are quite fast, and they have the option now, when they regenerate at the top, to come down at a different speed. So this will produce a different animation each time this falls, and so it's not going to be the same fast ones dropping through, the same slow ones taking ages. We can really get some kind of variance in how this is generating and how this is working. And I think if I was to leave this for running for a couple of minutes, I think this would start to look really cool and really interesting. Well, not that it doesn't already. I think it does. It's definitely looking pretty cool, especially with the amount. Now, one thing that's really nice is that we've built in this checking for how big the screen is. So, for instance, if I was to come out of this and change this from full screen back to size and run that. Okay, you can see it's just optimized for this size of thing. Okay, it's only made enough lines to fill up the window, and it's not made hundreds and hundreds of lines that it would use to fill up the full screen. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. You could look at maybe changing these to letters, to different kind of characters. You might go to different alphabets to do that. You might look at using the alpha channel to maybe make some blur. You could play with the colors. You could play with how frequently they change. You could play with, change these different variables, so the letter heights, the line width, the change threshold, the different colors that you use, and make your own falling text animation. Sweet.